Our series, Show and Tell, will take you inside some of the great libraries, both public and private, to explore books and treasures from Jewish history. Okay, so before we get to there, maybe take me, this looks like the piece de la resistance.
It is. Okay, so these are two of the most important manuscripts in the world related to Maimonides. The one on the right is his commentary on the Mishnah. The Mishnah, the great rabbinic text upon which the Gemara, the Talmud, is based.
It's opened up to a very naughty page.
So we'll get to that in a moment. This commentary on the Mishnah, Maimonides wrote. He was the first to really write a comprehensive commentary on the Mishnah. Scholars see this, the entire thing, some see it as completely his autograph, as in he wrote every word of this.
Word for word.
There are other scholars who see it as potentially that it was written by a scribe, but that notes in the margins are his. And there's a reason for that, because you can just see that there's a distinction between the actual handwriting. It's also very important because of the diagram. The diagram of the Menorah.
You picked this page deliberately, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, when you go to a museum, nothing is just random. So you'll see that the Menorah includes these branches, these arms that are straight. It's likely a schematic, meaning that he didn't intend to say that this, the Menorah actually was straight. And in antiquity, generally the material or the representations of the Menorah that we have from late antiquity are famously the curved branches. But it's most famous today, where we are today now, over the last several decades, because the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, insisted that this is how the Maimonides saw the Menorah, that it would have been straight-armed. And in fact, all over the world, you'll see
ubiquitous Chabad
exactly.
Menorah is based on this text. And where does this come from?
Both of these manuscripts are housed in the Bodleian Libraries in Oxford.
And where did they get them from? Was this also in the Geniza?
No, these were never lost, as the material in the Geniza would have been. These were preserved by his family initially, and then made their way, eventually in the 17th century, they're purchased. There's sort of different stories. So there are a handful of important pieces here, just to give an example. All three of these manuscripts are from Yemen. Now, there was never Hebrew printing in Yemen. Okay. Jews were early printers, meaning there were Jews sort of jumped on the new technology. The first printing in Portugal and in North Africa and the Ottoman Empire, it was all Hebrew printing. Okay. But Hebrew printing never made its way to Yemen. It does not mean that the Yemenite Jewish community was so far afield and separate from the Jewish world. Yemen was crucial to trade between India and the Mediterranean. And Jews in Yemen are connected to Jews in the Mediterranean. And we have proof of that here. But there are two pieces in particular that are very interesting. One related to something we saw in the other room, and another that will relate to the printing aspect. The first is that you'll see that we have a graphic here of this Menorah that we discussed. This is from that manuscript that's at the Bodleian Library in Oxford. Underneath it is a manuscript. This is a Hartman family piece that also has a Menorah with the straight arms. Now, this manuscript is not based on this per se. It does not mean that the scribe here saw this. But what it does represent, and what Rabbi Yosef Kapach had indicated in his works, was that there are at least 6 copies of these Yemenite manuscripts that have the straight arm, which means that there was a tradition for this. Mm-hmm.
Now, it was just at random, or
exactly. Now, scholars can state, this is a schematic, meaning it's just meant to indicate what it's supposed to not physically look like, but what the pieces sort of represent. Mm-hmm. But as far as Yemenite scribes and the intention to preserve Maimonides and his writings, what it really represents is this. We know that there is a dedication to the way the Rambam presented this. Mm-hmm. So what this represents here is that Yemenite Jews are preserving Maimonides. They have a tradition for the straight-armed. They're not interested necessarily in aesthetic value, although you do see Yemenite manuscripts that have that. But instead a dedication to the actual sort of preservation of Maimonides. It's interesting because when you compare it to this manuscript, now this is from Germany, meaning Ashkenaz.
Non-Yemenite.
Exactly. In 14th century, And there's this beautiful depiction of the menorah. And here what we have,
shaking my head.
It's a purely aesthetic, it's produced for aesthetic value.
And this menorah is curved, not like the original one and the Yemenite one.
Right. One of the reasons that this is particularly important, though, when we have these as juxtaposed to each other, is because we're not here to judge whether one or the other was correct, or whether
which was the Rambam's preferred conception of the menorah.
Exactly. The point of the exhibition is to simply understand the story. Here we have this individual, his massive impact, his spreading influence. Who are the people involved? How is this received? How are they representing this? What does it mean to them and to both to the scribes or the artists and to the communities in which they live?
I just have to ask you in one word: are you team curved menorah or straight menorah?
Probably curved, but that was more than one word.